and this is Heavy Worship Nation. We are here with our good friends Mariam. Give them a round of applause. They came all the way from Corpus. Yeah, where in Corpus? So
Where in Corpus Christi?
it doesn't look like.
We're not so big that we have multiple parts of the city.
Okay.
Hours left.
Okay.
I guess. But none, we're all probably from Corpus, except for Pablo.
Where are you from?
Motive,
Oh,
which is
That's what I
like
was like, because I feel like I
the
remember
Owls.
somebody was like,
Motive now.
no.
What is that? 40 minutes away?
It's about 40, yeah.
Oh.
But it's right off of 37, so it's easy to get.
Because I remember last time, do we not? I'm gonna just acknowledge. We recorded this before. It was like, so we're recording it again, and we had some people missing. So that's why I was like, somebody was gone. I don't know.
Oh,
But-
it wasn't real last.
that's
Yeah.
what it was. I remember seeing Kevin, but I
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah, that's what I was like. Okay.
Good thing a bug, but other than that.
Oh, I know. The pug was so cute last time.
They saw the bug this morning briefly when we loaded in.
I love it. You got anything to say, Chill, before we get
Yeah,
started?
I'm really happy that the other episode got erased. Yes. I am. I'm really happy I accidentally deleted it. It was a happy accident because this episode, we're gonna talk about why Christian musicians transition out of heavy worship. So your first album was All Is Grace, one of my favorites. Like, if you look at this shirt, I wear it so much, it's so faded. I need another one.
Yeah, we-
Right?
Oh, we just gotta do it.
Some of us, yeah, Trey and I don't have the shirt.
Yeah.
What?
We don't have that. Yeah.
It's so good. It's so many classes about it. Like, what is that? Yeah, so All Is Grace, really, really good. Like, if you go back to my last year top 5, that album was one of my top 5. Like, it was really, really good. But I know that you guys are in this transitioning period. So that's really what I want to talk about. We don't have any scripted questions this time. The Holy Spirit's gonna lead. So tell us about a little bit about All Is Grace and then where y'all are going in the future and why.
And also introduce yourselves too.
Oh,
I don't want to just be like, oh,
Sit over there.
talking.
Right? I'm like,
Yeah.
I know, then that's all that's important.
I'm Kevin. I play lead guitar, rhythm guitar, some backing vocals.
I'm David. I play drums and I do some vocal stuff.
I'm Jason. I do what they tell me to do.
Pablo, I play bass.
I'm Trey, I play guitar, more ambient stuff. Yeah, more like that later.
Nice.
I love it. All right.
All right, so to answer your question, I guess that's a very hard question to start with, but All Is Grace. So we had a heavy worship service. It's heavy worship service. We had a heavy metal worship service in Corpus Christi at St. John's United Methodist Church, and that's a whole story in of itself. But I'll say that's kind of what birthed the band, and we went through a lot of different iterations of people. Originally, I was not part of it. In fact, most of us weren't part of it. Pablo wasn't really part of it. I think Kevin wasn't part of it at first. Trey was, and Trey got his brother into it. And we just went through a lot of those changes. And originally, it was just about what we did at that church on Sundays. Eventually, we felt like it was a necessity for us to get more involved in the local scene in Corpus Christi. And so we decided to start playing more original music and go out and play at bars, wherever they would let us play, parking lots, random grass fields in Kingsville. Houses, South Texas, you know.
Yeah.
We've been all over South Texas, you know. Not Odom, unfortunately.
No,
yet.
one goes to.
Maybe we'll find some dilapidated house.
No, you gotta put gas, you can go to Corpus.
So that's kind of what started the band, and All Is Grace. I was a really big fan of Brendan Manning at the time. He's an author, and he wrote a book called All Is Grace, you know, and he was an alcoholic. It was kind of a love letter about how God loved him through all that persistent love. And so that was a thematic element in the album when we were writing it. And we were talking about it, funny enough, on the way up here about Brian and I, the original singer, the clean singer. We're all singers, right? But the nice, pleasant vocals that are not as aggressive. Brian and I wrote a lot of the music together, and then later James kind of filled in some of the gaps. And All Is Grace to me is really just a testament to where our faith journey was at the time, where our faith was. I was studying to be a pastor. We were all super involved in the church, whether we were playing for worship bands and stuff, outside of Mariam. But it was also just because we wanted to be out in those places where I love the impending doom statement, like, you will not dictate where my worship goes. And I think we kind of took that and tried to go to bars and places where people wouldn't normally hear about the gospel and about hope and about how I think our conception of Jesus or our relationship with Jesus is really like. And I look back on those days now, and it's been 10 years since we wrote that album. And 10 years since it's released.
Dude, it's good. You wouldn't guess that it's 10 years old either. Like, it's good.
Yeah, no, I was listening to it, I was like, what, 10 years? That's like a decade.
Yeah.
Like, the showing y'all age, you know what I'm saying?
But I don't really have a lot more to say about all, I mean, we can address the other question, but I just want to open it up if anybody else wants to kind of address like writing all this grace. I know a lot of it was really fell on these two guys, David as well, but a lot fell on Kevin and Trey to really write. And really before we went to the Air Force, and we did a ton of work.
Yeah, I left, I literally left for the military, like 2 weeks after the album got released.
Oh, wow.
And then, within a number of years, then when I came back, tried to get the band back moving again, but, yeah, it was an interesting time trying to write that stuff because, like I grew up listening to like kind of a bunch of music, but like Trey and I were both into like new metal, at the time, like Born and all the Seven Dust, all the crazy early 2000s, and our sound kind of was not like any of the other bands that we played with in Corpus, which is kind of why we stuck out.
Yeah.
I think in a good way. So we weren't as heavy as some of the bands, but I think we brought a lot of like melody and different musicianship to the songs. I play a lot of speed, thrashy stuff, whereas my brother does a lot of like the breakdowns and the ambient layers and like the moody stuff. So him and I have always kind of just been writing riffs together, and we just kind of like piece them in, like, oh, this could work. What do you have? And we just kind of like sandwich it together, see what fits. But that first record, it was fun. It was fun writing it. Maybe wrote like one of the songs in the studio. Like Tremble.
It's really
Tremble,
cool.
which is
Well, musically, we had written most of it beforehand,
Yeah.
but it got finished and then they finished writing the lyrics for it while we were recording the other songs in the studio.
Okay.
So right before we started, they're like, okay, I think this is what we're gonna do. And
yeah, and the lyrics were like callbacks to some songs, some lyrics that were just thrown into the Tremble.
broken branches. Well, so before Mariam as a entity, I guess, we had the Thy Kingdom Come service and Keith Collins, who we probably couldn't have really started the service without him, because not only was he the lead guitar player, but he taught Adam, who is now in Gratitude, Texas, who used to be our bass player. Keith taught Adam how to play bass so that Adam could play in the worship metal band at service. And so Keith was super instrumental in all of that. And before the Mariam stuff happened, we played around with writing some songs with him. We wrote 2, and one was No Longer Captive and the other one was Sustain Us. And he somehow like put those into one fluid sentence in the lyrics for Tremble, which I died when I heard that. But that's
But yeah, it was a fun time trying to write. How many songs? 9?
9, yeah.
9 on the record, I think 9. And there's an acoustic one, Miracles, which was
That's like my favorite.
a lot of people love. You know, we got Brian to come back in and sing the chorus with me on that, while James did the verses. So it was kind of like everybody who had a hand in the service at that time pretty much came in and worked on the record.
And I think in the studio, I rewrote all of my guitar parts, about 85% of my guitar parts in the
Yeah.
studio. Because
Wow.
when we played it live, it works live, but then the studio, like when we played it back, I'm like, that's not gonna work, or
Yeah.
that's not gonna fight with on the album. So I rewrote on the spot a lot of my guitar parts.
Wow. That is amazing.
I put that to go back and learn it.
That is really cool. I'm like really shocked about, I'm like really floored about that part because I'm just like, as a drummer, like you just like some, I mean, I know sometimes you just like improv things, but the fact that you were like in the studio and it was like, oh, that doesn't sound right. And it's like, I mean, how many days like did they give you? Was it just one day that you had? Like what was
I think
it?
we were mostly there 3 days, so it was about 3 full days that we were
Wow.
with Mason Shirley at Sound Machine Studios. And I think what's cool about when you get in the recording studio is they really teach you a lot.
Yeah.
None of us had ever been, I mean, as far as I know,
Yeah.
not like that, right, okay, so none of us had been in a recording studio before, like
Like
that, in
ever.
that way.
Yeah.
Oh.
I'd done it for other stuff, but not music, for other reasons, like voiceover stuff, whatever, but not for music. And we went in there and Mason was like, well, that doesn't sound good. And he was just on, and I honestly, I appreciate
I needed an outside.
you become a better band when you go in there and you realize you have to be perfect.
Yeah.
There's no messing up. You have to be on the click track, you have to be on tempo, all of it, the vocals, the drums, especially if you don't want to have to do, a lot of bands now, they just use drum kits and stuff that they'll kind of piece in.
Yeah.
We didn't want to do that, so we did a lot of work before, but then I feel like even in the moment, you realize you kind of realize you're not as good as you think you are.
Yeah.
And it's a good, I think it's a good
humbling
humbling experience. And so for all of us, that made the band better. I definitely noticed personally, like when we played live after that, it was different, a lot tighter. But yeah, that was a great, I think the best word we got out of that was schmelding. Yeah. So that this day, Mason kept saying like, schmeld yourself to the drums, like schmeld yourself, like stop, like you're off the tempo, you're like, mentally schmeld yourself to this. And I was like, that's
That is so cool. And like, do you guys just, because I know that there are musicians that listen to this podcast. Do you guys, what do you think about using a click track, like, just like, or like the in-ear stuff, like live, like, are you just just doing it raw? Like, what is it like?
I think that should be like, be used for everything.
Thank you.
Cause it's,
Mhm.
you, once you have that, I mean, I know personally in other previous projects, when you're in the moment, sometimes you rush that song. You don't mean to do it, but it's just like, you're just like vibing with everybody and you're
Yeah.
getting into it, so that drummer starts picking up and you're like, oh, I gotta go faster too. So, but if you have that click track, you have the consistency throughout the whole time. So you can plan it, you can plan your whole set exactly the way you want it to be, and it's gonna go that way. I mean, of course, you might have technical difficulties here and there, but with that, at least with the human error, it kind of gets out of the way.
Yeah,
That's good. That's a really good way to explain.
because like when we play worship, there's, it's kind of like borderline mayhem. It really is. So I'm like keeping clip with my leg and Bill's always like, what are you doing? 1, 2, 3, 4, you know?
But I mean, there's beauty in chaos.
It's true,
So
yeah,
you
it's a lot of freedom. Yeah.
And so whenever we were getting ready to record, one thing that Mason told us was, okay, so before y'all get here, I need you to tell me what the tempo is gonna be so I can set your click track. So I don't know how long we took sitting there like, oh no,
It was probably like.
what
Maybe a week.
should the speed of this be? I don't know. So some things were slower in the studio, like when Brian, our clean vocalist, he was so used to us playing Saint Edmund like fast, way faster than it is on the CD. So when he heard it afterwards, even though it sounds good on the CD, he was like, this, I feel like it's just dragging so much. Cause he got so used to how fast I would go because I wasn't into that click mindset.
Yeah.
And to be fair, we don't use a click track at the moment, which we've talked about. I kind of just. Because as much as I've gotten better, I still, when I get excited, like when we're playing live or whatever, I start to take off and they have to like, they'll play and then they'll kind of look at me for a second, and sometimes I catch it, sometimes I don't.
You might see you later today, the look.
Yes.
They're like, shut up, bro.
Hopefully, especially on the new ones. That's gonna kill me.
Yeah, we're gonna play new ones.
No, baby. You
I'm
don't know.
all.
They're not gonna see this beforehand, so.
Yeah, we are playing new ones, 2 new ones. Yeah.
That is so exciting.
Very
One of
excited.
them.
Like, I gotta record it now.
Yeah.
Yeah. People have been asking if we're gonna go live. For people that don't know, like, this is like the Heavy Worship Nation Celebrate Recovery event. Like, we're literally in one of the rooms in here recording, so.
And my
super
phone
excited.
always dies, so I'll try to go.
That's not like the other AA meetings I've been to, there's no coffee.
Just roughing it out here. It's our first time. Just give us grace. But I knew that you had another question that you asked them. I didn't know how you specifically asked that question.
I think it'll be a segue into, because we're not even gonna talk about the bass stuff, that's gonna come later.
Yeah.
So my question is, what genre are you guys gonna be transitioning into now? Because like last time we talked about this, you guys told us what genre you.
We're actually switching over. We're gonna be a tribute band, no doubt.
That's gonna
Honestly,
be great.
Spiderwebs,
Inspired.
it's literally just be spiderwebs for 40 minutes.
That bass.
So we've always kind of been a metalcore band, but I think I don't know, things have gotten weird in the last 10 years with how many branches of metal that you can call something.
Mhm.
So I guess we're still metalcore with extra.
I think we're, yeah.
Heavy
Yeah.
metalcore. Metalcore.
Yeah.
but there's a core. No,
Oh,
like
yes,
it's not,
yeah.
not heavy metal, like it's like.
Because
core.
we're still into melodic
Yeah.
stuff, but the
Yeah.
heavy is still there.
But
I mean, some songs we're working on that I would probably say are more in the hardcore realm, deathcore-y.
very
Like,
Oh,
we cut the clean vocalists out, so I think we kind of, I think the songs right here today are probably more throwbacks to like old school, like how we were. But I feel like the other songs that we haven't released yet that we've been working on in the background are a lot heavier and a lot more rhythmically based.
There's, one of them that David was saying was gonna kill him, that one part he's talking about, it's kind of like black metal. So that's what I really like about it.
dude, that's amazing. Are y'all playing that one? Like.
Yeah.
Yes,
to-
yeah.
Shove it in the pit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So whenever, like you said, we're kind of getting away from the clean vocal stuff. I guess before it was 60-40 heavy to clean vocals. Now it's gonna be like 75-15.
Okay.
Ooh.
75, 15, then.
Are we mathing right now?
Yeah, 75, 35, or 80, 20 somewhere.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's gonna be, it'll still be there.
Just like the beef you should be buying.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah. That's so crazy. Cause I was just like, before we like started recording, I heard these guys talking about like blood and like science stuff and like technical terms. And I was like, man, they're like smart. So I just wanted to pick their brain.
Math.
Madison. But yeah, that is really, really cool. And like, I know in the last one that we recorded, we kind of talked about a little bit about your journey as far as like becoming a musician. I guess, can you just give maybe like, I don't know, just whatever you feel like saying, but like what inspired you to become a musician and like want to get together? Like, how did you meet?
Great, so Trace started that.
Well, me and Kevin, we're brothers. We're actually quadruplets. There's 4 of us.
That is amazing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so Kevin and I got on guitar because our older brother played guitar
Mhm.
and he played a lot of Metallica. And I was like, oh, I wanna play guitar.
Mhm.
And so we ended up both picking up guitars and then playing. At one point, I got a bass.
Yeah, my first real instrument was bass, and I was terrible at it. It was terrible. I was trying to play like power chords on it. I was like, nothing else doing. And then we just, and then we kind of just, well, I'm gonna play guitar.
And then I swapped to bass for a little bit and then I was like, I like electric a lot more.
Yeah, so then we just both kind of just swing on the guitar.
Guitar.
That's cool.
But yeah, we've been playing for multiple churches, you know,
Yeah.
Corpus for, I mean, since we were in like middle school, high
It's like
school.
20 years now.
Oh, like over 20.
That's cool.
But I mean, we had like what, maybe 1 or 2 lessons. We just self taught ourselves.
Yeah.
Which I think is like the way to do it, because like you're kind of figuring out your own like style of music, how you want to play. usually when you play, you pay for lessons, they give you what they're gonna give you, and it's like, you don't always wanna play, like Mary had a little one, maybe you wanna play Metallica or something.
Or smoke on the water.
Yeah, right, so it's like, you kind of figure out what you wanna do, so I mean, and this was before YouTube, so you can't, we had to like figure out guitar on our own, and
Yeah.
watching videos and.
No
now-
ultimateguitar.com.
I think it was just beginning that we kind of started playing guitar, but yeah, we self-taught ourselves, so we definitely have like bad habits
Yeah.
for sure.
Like,
But
I
they work for
I
us.
don't alternate pick, I just down pick. So-
Yeah, his down picks, that's my alternate pick,
That is cool.
which is something I wish I would have done, because my down picking, I get very tired after about 3 or 4 bars. Switch back over to alternate.
So, those bad habits kind of stuff.
Yeah, so we have some bad habits, but yeah, we just kind of playing. Our other brother, who's part of the quadruple, he's a drummer. But he's in the Air Force. He's been doing it for 13 years. He's been in 13 years. So we all kind of like play instruments in our house. So that's kind of like, I think that's how you get better, just playing with different people.
Yeah.
Even if it's like something you don't play, like if you threw me into a country setting, I'd probably be terrible, but I could figure my way out through it. But like if you play with other people instead of just playing by yourself, I think you get a little bit better. Because it kind of forces you to get out there and figure that out.
And I think that's where our styles kind of started complementing each other, where.
Yeah, because you gravitated more towards the heavy stuff, and I was more like more
Brought
wild.
it in the Green Street.
Yeah.
Let's do this tomorrow.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, we've just been playing for decades at this point. We're not like the best musicians by any means, but we can play some tunes.
Beneath the night of beneath the light of a neon
Yeah.
cross.
Yeah.
And we try not to play like the same artists. So he'll play like on a verse, like a really fast thing on the guitar, and I probably can't do it. So I'll start doing the melody lines over it.
We'll do like some syncopated stuff.
Yeah.
to Sit in the pocket with the drummer. But yeah, we just been. I mean, it was just easy for us.
I'll hear your story.
So with me, I was a junior high, I wanted to play, but I wasn't really into it. And then whenever I got into high school, I was in AP classes with my best friend. And our history class was actually in the art room, because a small scope room, like I said. They had a closet and it was full of classical guitars. So we were cool with our teacher, like, hey, can we start grabbing it? And yeah, my friend, he was playing, and I was like, yeah, so he was teaching me in there, and of course, he holds my guitar. So we would get into that, and then I was starting little by little getting more into it, and then the following year, we were in our art class, and we didn't want to do anything, and our teacher, he wasn't a really good teacher. I mean, he was a great guy, not a good teacher. We were like, he always had a art festival at the end of the year, and then I was like, hey, let's go to the back room and play guitar. We'll play at the end of the year. Okay, so we never had to do art. We were just always back there.
Shout out to that teacher.
Yeah, and then it progressed a little bit more to where he was jamming with the guys we went to school with, and they needed a bassist. I was like, sure, I'll do it. I was trash, I ain't gonna lie. But the thing is, during summers, since there's nothing to do over there, we would just go to that guy's house, and we would literally practice from like 12 till 10, just every day. And then when we graduated, we actually would start playing shows. And by the time we did that, we had like 10, 12 songs, right? They were all perfect. Everything was right in place. But we lost our drummer. We picked up a new drummer, who I actually went to elementary school with. And from there, we started just playing the scene. And I hate to say, but back then Corpus scene was really, really bad. It died off really hard. So, I've played to, 5 people, and that was because all the other bands left.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so yeah,
They didn't stay for no.
oh, no.
What the heck is going on with Corpus?
Well, it was, things happened, that both the major promoter had to stop, but, from there, I played bass for quite a while, and then after that band broke up, like we were talking about last time, playing bass by yourself kind of gets boring. So I switched over to guitar, and I did guitar for years, and that's whenever I met Mariam was, we were playing shows at Murdoch's.
Oh, my
Yeah.
goodness.
And,
Dirty Murdy's.
yeah, that's a different story. We'll talk about it another one. Yeah, kept in touch with them and, I was, at that time, I was telling myself I wasn't gonna play bass again, unless like there was 3 different scenarios.
Yeah.
And, so I went years, just, guitar. And, David hit me up about a year ago, no? Little over, it was last summer or December before.
Might have been like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he hit me up and he was like, Adam's leaving. He suggested, he asked you. And so I sat on it for a moment. And I was like, no, I don't really know. But then one of the scenarios was that I could actually play Christian music. So I talked to the wife and she's like, just go for it. And, I mean, she's super supportive. So I went. It was pretty good first day. Kept on going and here we are now.
That's really
If
cool.
we ever go back in the studio, I still want.
If,
I think.
Hey,
Sorry, when we go back in the studio, I still want Pablo to like play guitar, like 3 guitar parts,
Wow.
and also he do bass. So,
some great commission kind of stuff.
yeah.
One of the songs, one of the newer ones that we're playing today, actually, the guitar parts for that. Originally, he wrote like the main chunk and we just kind of wrote everything else.
Black note.
So originally by like 5th grade, me and Jason come from classical music. So we both got on the violin at the same time and we played. Yeah, I was.
You should.
We just weren't. That was hard to come by.
Okay, you have courage.
Basic
Yeah.
to the side.
We didn't have courage. We were just like, all right, I'll play violin.
Yeah, so we played all through middle school and high school. In high school though, I don't know what it was. I don't remember exactly what the reason was. I think it had to do with Keith.
Don't name the band, so. Inappropriate band.
So Keith Collins, the one I talked about earlier with TKC, he also, he's been playing guitar forever, like these guys. And we started hanging out at church because me and him went to the same church. And I think we were starting some TMFOC.
The Mighty Followers of Christ.
It was the first like youth-led worship service that we did. Was it once a month or something like that? And we wanted, a worship band. So Keith was like, well, I'll play guitar. And David, I've been trying to talk you into getting drums or play drums. So he was kind of the start of that. And so
We'll play Jewel. What if God was one of us over and over? Like heavy.
So I asked my parents, and my dad used to dabble on drums, and so he was super excited when I asked him for Christmas, and I got him like I think it was the Christmas of either 8th grade or 9th grade. I don't exactly remember, and must have been 9th grade, so freshman year. So me and Keith started playing together, and what he said earlier about when you start playing with other people, you get way better than just taking the straight up lessons, which is true because I started taking lessons from the worship drummer for the main service. And so I got some very basics down with him. And then I started playing with Keith, and I stopped doing the lessons and I just started playing with Keith. Like the first song I ever learned was American Idiot. I don't like Green Day. But at the time, that song, I really enjoyed that song. And that kind of took off. I was in a different weird metal band with him. And then Claudia. And then what really got me into the metal, because I used to not like heavy vocals and stuff. Like the heaviest I did was whenever the Linkin Park guy would scream, or the POV guy would scream every once in a while, and I was like, I kind of like that. But our buddy, so one night, our buddy James Bryce, who was our last lead vocalist who left, they just had their second baby, by the way. Yesterday, so congrats to him.
Procreation.
He came over to my house and he's like, hey, I want to show you something. I know you don't really like the heavy vocal thing, but I want you to watch this. And it was the music video for Undying by Demon. And at first I was like, okay. And then it hit that chorus when they started singing, and something in my brain just flipped. And from then on, that's all I wanted. I just wanted to play that type of music. That's it. And that kind of snowballed into the TKC stuff. He started listening to heavy music like a little before me, I think, but then we all started going to shows as much as we could at the White Rabbit in San Antonio, and
I blame orchestra.
yeah.
It really was orchestra. Orchestra was small. I remember getting dragged to all these venues and like I didn't know who Impending Doom was, but then they play and I was like, these vocals. My parents would be super pissed off if I played this song. But like, that was part of it. But also just like I thought at the time everything was super positive. I'm not saying that it isn't now, but even like Stick to Your Guns, and I just remember going to those things in Corpus at the compound that was a big venue back then, in the underground, which is like kind of a chicken coop converted into a venue. I mean, that's the one place they would let us abuse each other, abuse each other in the pit and scream into microphones.
I remember how they had that pole in the middle, and it was
Yeah,
always in the middle.
people would always get knocked.
Yeah.
Yeah. We all have those in our hometowns, right? That shady venue.
Well, Zero's had the dang pillar in the middle of the
If you flip the switch off, everything went off.
One of the times I did at Zero, there was only one guy there, he was drunk, and he beat that hole to where the plaster was falling off of it. Oh, man, I couldn't stop laughing when I was playing that. Cause he was just there, just rocking at it, and the bartender was just like.
Go, knock yourself out.
I'm not gonna go into my musician story that much because David kind of covered it, but I played orchestra. Never thought I'd be in a metal band. I played a couple times here and there with them, like we were in high school. Did different stuff, but some rap. A brief, before the Ghost Man, and Suicide Boys were hot. It was me. No.
him, J Master Flex.
That was your name?
As-
What?
YouTube wasn't
straight out of MySpace,
Oh, dang.
For those of you, you're old enough where YouTube wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
So we had a MySpace profile.
We had MySpace and we had E-Bombs World. and
Oh, you bombs
a
world.
couple other things.
I have no idea where y'all are.
We're old.
What?
LimeWire.
Oh, God.
LimeWire. Is that a thing anymore?
No.
I mean, you can
Is it gone?
They're probably still out there.
Yeah.
Early, kind of late night.
Early 2000s.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we'll get back on track. Back.
Oh, I didn't know you were done.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
I'm done.
Okay, so rap career and like a bunch of other stuff. That was really cool. I'm kind of having a brain fart here.
Another too long. That's
Do you have any other,
Do I have any other questions?
mhm.
I want to get into what's happening in the future.
Yeah, I was gonna think about it, but I didn't know if you had any other about like the old album or whatever.
I said everything I was gonna say. It's amazing. I really enjoy it.
Thank you.
It's my Morris worn shirt. I too come from across the world. And I think what it was is the discipline. It fires something like really angry in you because you just have to be perfect. So like when my brothers asked, they wanted to do Metallica cover band and Death Clock too, but they needed a bassist. So I was like, I was so hurt. Like I started going to college for music and I was so hurt with just like the performance aspect and getting scouted. And I was trying to be sober for the first time ever, which is like really sad being 19 and trying to get sober and I just didn't know how to function. So I quit and I was like, never touching music again, business, life, whatever, right? So my brothers came to ask me if I played bass. They're like, well, tell us bass Cliff. It's essentially the same. I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. So then they showed me Cliff. And I was like, okay, so y'all got me. So that's how I started doing bass. But yeah, I definitely classical music for that anger within. But at the same token, I don't. Because it's like, it gives you structure to be able to see everything else and put it in its place.
Like when you go to like classical, there are some composers that were really heavy.
Yeah.
Like if you actually listen to if you were to like transcribe it to like maybe a guitar or even like, keys
Vivaldi.
nowadays, yes, it's very, very like.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people don't understand. When they listen to it, they're like, oh, it's boring. But if you actually like were to dive, like do a deep dive, oh man, it's heavy stuff.
Yeah, I mean Vivaldi, I mean, a freaking Vivaldi's pretty heavy to me.
It's the name itself.
I think a lot of metalheads, people who aren't really in the world of that much, would be surprised at how many of them listen to classical music or soundtracks to movies that are.
Yeah.
Or video games.
The Doom soundtrack.
The Doom
Halo,
Halo,
I think Halo, okay,
Like,
influence.
all of it. I mean, I think they kind of go hand in hand, though.
Let's take just because Halo is it. I mean, that's, I mean, seriously, dude, play Halo like how.
Yeah, there's the one view.
Hey, bros, how are you?
Headshots.
For me, I still listen to the Skyrim soundtrack.
Oh, yeah, I still put
So
that.
good.
It's like medieval stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I gotta see talk for folk music. Nobody knows this. Now everybody knows. I like folk music. Cool. I know, yes.
Have you seen
The
the
dwarves that rose something.
dwarves guys?
Yeah, the dwarves will rise, the dwarves will rise.
Oh, I
love
want to
that.
see them so bad. They look
They're
so
Italian.
fun.
Yeah, they're from Europe, they're from Europe.
They all dress up like they're dwarves.
Yeah.
And they talk about mining.
It's all,
And so.
yeah, it's like a Lord of the Rings based dwarves.
Uh-huh.
So not like Skyrim where, they just disappeared. It's actual like about going, digging in the chasms and finding jewels and.
I'm a sucker for themes. Like,
It's like, the first time I was like,
We are
that is the
too.
coolest thing ever.
It is.
Yeah, that's why I like Austrian Death Machine or SWAT. We should like to open for what Demon Hunter and I've
No, Swashbuckle opened up for soil work.
So, but it was Demon Hunter was there too, right?
Demon Hunter was the
So-
next night. That was a fun weekend.
That is so cool. I feel like I should say something about my musicianship.
I don't know.
I'm trying to think of like what the question was. I started playing drums when I was 15 years old. The only reason why I started playing drums was because my aunt told me, I'm sorry if you're listening to this, but she said she's a music teacher and I really wanted to learn the drums. And she was like, oh, that's not for girls. And so I was like, you know what? I was like, I'm going to pick up those drumsticks because I ain't playing with my private parts. Okay. Like we both have hands, we both have arms. Like I will do it. And so I would like go up next to the guys in like my middle school and I'd be like, what's up with it? And then like, they'd be like, okay, like, let's go. You know what I mean? And I was a clarinet player and it was like a whole thing. And then I ended up in high school, like starting to go on Craigslist. Do not recommend that now because Craigslist is not safe. But I mean, I was so hungry for it. I was so hungry for a band to like just start something. I didn't care if you were 50. I didn't care if you were like 10. I didn't care. But I really wanted to be in a band so bad. And I thought I was going to get all famous. And I thought, I was, you know what I mean? Like, because I just was in my own little fantasy world. And it's just so crazy how things end up now. But yeah, I've been a drummer since I was 15. I'm 31 now. Still playing drums. Was totally doing metal and like stuff, like being in a band since like back then. And then now I just play worship for my church. But I'm kind of in the process of starting another band again on the side. Yeah, definitely talk about that later because it's gonna take too long to talk about that. But yeah, I just think it's really cool just overall, like we started this podcast because I feel like when you get musicians together, like and then like start a podcast and then you talk to other musicians, you kind of have like this, I don't know, it's just you ask different questions rather than someone has no musical ability whatsoever, like doesn't even really care, like they just want to, get basic answers. But it's like, we would have never talked about the click track. We would have never talked about classical music. And I think it's just really cool, like just talking about this all together. So, but yeah, that's just a little bit of my story, but I'm really curious now to kind of see like the transition of like, from your old album to like your new music, like what inspired that change? Like whose idea was it? Was it a collaborative thing? Was it just one person? Like, kind of like go into that.
Real quick, I want to put a disclaimer because it happens a lot. I'm serious when I say that up with it, okay? Musicians are transitioning from worship to more, and it's not even secular. It's just not so explicitly for the Lord, and everybody thinks it's so taboo. So I want to talk about this transition.
Yeah, I know they're all looking at me.
Oh, man.
No, I would say my feelings about it are, I know people have all these varying takes on it. My feeling is actually all music is Christian. And the reason I believe that is if you believe Christ is Lord, if you believe God created the heavens and the universe, he created order out of chaos, that's what music is. And we're taking because if we all just played off tempo and all this stuff, that's not music.
Mhm.
Music is a harmony of all of us kind of cohesively coming together and playing music that somehow by God's grace that all works together, creates melody, creates harmony. That is a uniquely human experience. And people have been doing that since the dawn of time, playing music together, playing beats, playing and singing. And to me, whether you're Cattle Decapitation or your Hillsong United, it's really not all that different. I know that's a hot take, but like that, I just think it's making order out of chaos and you're kind of taking part of that creative ongoing creation that God is doing. And whether you're personally Christian or not, I think if we believe in a higher power, if we believe in all that stuff, then that's exactly what's happening. All of us are taking part in this ongoing creation that's happening. That's what art is. Kind of making order out of chaos. So for us, I think a lot of it was just having a conversation together about where we were at. And we didn't want to be as implicit when we went up on stage about like, I think doing like the altar calls type stuff and all that. But I think our intention is still, and to this day is still to give people hope and to help people understand that they have value and they mean something in this world, that we need them to stay in this world. Personally, I've had my own faith struggles, but I don't know if I would say I'm Christian or not, but I kind of go back and forth all the time. And you know what, to be fair, there's a lot of people in the Bible that do that.
Yeah.
And so does that make me bad? Does that make us wrong? I don't think so. I think I hold on to this statement about the mustard seed, right? Faith and mustard seed.
Yeah.
Hey, right now, that's kind of where I feel like I'm at. But I have a community of people that support me through that. And even when I only have a mustard seed of faith, they have it for me. They got it for me. And I think that's the beauty of being in community with other people. It's not an individual expression. Band is not an individual expression. We all have to agree to get together and deal with each other's faults, like not writing lyrics to songs that have been out for 5 months until the last 2 weeks. Just confession. So I guess that more or less would be my statement of why we made these decisions. And we came back together, 7 or 8 years after we'd all originally been together. And so we're different.
Yeah.
And I think if you don't change, that's also an indictment on you. Because you should change. I'm not saying you should lose your faith. That's not my statement.
Yeah.
I'm saying we should be different people than we were when we were in our early 20s.
Like,
right? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We're better musicians. We come to things with a different experience. We've all lived very different lives up until this point. Some of us are sober, some of us are not. Some of us were in the military, some of us were not. We all kind of have different careers, job fields, and do different things in our lives. Some of us have kids. Our lives are different than they were 10 years ago. So the band and the music should express that, because again, it's not an individual expression. It's part of like all of our lives kind of cohesively coming together. That's what I love about it. That's a reason I agreed to come back and do it with them. And
It was a struggle trying to find Jason to come back. It was like really like David and me and Trey and I mean, it was like months of like trying to date him to come back.
dare I say, a year.
Yeah, it was he just wasn't ready. So we still kind of got together and kind of played parts. And
Well, and whenever, man, I'm trying to remember the order of things. So CD release, you leave, band kind of goes into this weird gray timeline.
I left.
You left, then ultimately I left. Jason stayed, had some other dudes that didn't
Yeah,
work out. So
that was a mess. I'll say, like, I don't know, all bands can, like, you guys like to hit all that stuff. I think all bands can empathize.
Mhm.
We already had a really great cohesive group, and then all of a sudden it was like me and 4 other guys that I
Yeah.
hadn't really played with, and then we had to deal with things like drug addiction and things that I wasn't, because I didn't have that problem with them.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, like, what are these guys doing? Like, it was just a little bit of an eye-opening experience, because I'd been in other bands here and there, but never where the whole band had changed except for me. And then I still remember that day. You remember, I didn't talk about it. That's when Mariam fell off. We played at Zeros, and it was the worst show of my entire life. 30 minutes of being embarrassed. But you have to like try to gut it through.
that was hard because I always had, whenever you're in a band, you always, yeah, you can see a recording of yourself, like
Yeah.
a video, but being able to be live in the audience watching your band, you're never really able to do that, obviously, because you're up there and you can't. But then whenever they were playing their first show of that version of Mariam, I was really excited because I finally was getting to see, and then it went the way it did, and it was a struggle not to like jump up there and like rip the drummer out. And
Yeah, you were still there to give me a hug after.
But,
you knew.
I knew that, like, I could tell halfway through from his face that was it. Like, there was the ending that had just, and so from that point on, there was nothing for a while. But Kevin, who was still in the Air Force and who was gone, Trey and me were still here. We started trying to do the thing that's super easy to do now, which is write music with people not in the same city as you.
Mhm.
So he wrote some stuff, sent it to me. We kind of messed with it, and then he came down one time.
He came down on me, and I was like, hey, I'm here for like a month.
And so we recorded 3 other songs for what was a possible Mariam / maybe another side thing. Because then once we recorded those, we had been talking to Jason. He was in Houston at the time. I went up there, showed him those. He was kind of excited, but then some other stuff changed. And, so then there was nothing. And then we finally came back because you moved back, and Joe, who was a good friend of ours, who was If Bands Were People, his band was our band's best friend at the time. And so he came back and was playing with us and doing Jason's vocal part. And he actually was part of the reason why TKC was able to come back too, because TKC had also stopped for a while. We did it with him for a few years, then he decided he needed to stop, and so that ended again. And then finally wound up to where we are now with Jason coming back, Pablo joining us. It's been a weird road.
Yeah.
But
That's how long, that's why there hasn't been a release of a new record in over 10 years, just because it's.
And because
Start,
I
stop.
always have to pee when I leave.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna pee real quick. I'll be right back.
Really?
Yeah, I'll be right back.
I can check my
Well,
phone.
Yeah.
he does, he
Let's
works
take a
out
break
a
real
lot,
quick.
so he
Yeah.
drinks a lot of
Quick break.
water and protein.
Yeah. All right.
I like how loud it is, so you definitely.
Right? No.
Well, building up on what they're going, like, to be honest, I didn't know that it was transitioning until the day that we had the first interview with y'all. That's where I was like, oh, okay.
Oh, man.
Well, I'm here anyways. But,
I'm sorry, dude, I didn't.
it's cool.
That's the basis. They're just like, oh, whatever, they don't care.
It's well, I mean, I see everyone's like stance and everything, and I everyone should be able to do what they want and everything. But the way I see it is, you don't need to preach in order to be able to get your message across, especially like there are people that are having their doubts and everything. So if they do have those doubts, and then they hear lyrics like that, and sometimes all you gotta do is listen. So I mean, like, yeah, there's probably people that are going through stuff, and then they can be Because I mean, as musicians, you always have those people that come up to you right after you play and they talk and everything. And then those can lead to other subjects and everything. The one thing I would like to base it off is like, one of my favorite bands of all time, Devil Wears Prada. They've gone secular and I'm part of like Christian music groups online and they get berated and berated because of it. And the one thing that I like to get across is like, if you listen to their new stuff, one of their singles that came out a while back, Chemicals, it really tackles the subject, you know, on mental health and everything, which if they were still, you know, the Christian route, it's not something that you have a lot of Christian bands singing about that. But when you transition to another approach, you have it to where you can reach farther audiences. So yeah, even though they're not Christian at this point, they're reaching new audiences that are going to go through their discography and they're going to find, hey, you know, these are all like Christian songs, and it's going to divulge it because, like I was telling you last time, the way I, you know, came back into religion in my 20s was through the worst product, and having the iPhone on shuffle, and then they pop up, and you're like, oh my god, it's great. Am I Christian now? Yeah, I think I am. But yeah, so that's what I see it as. It's not really going away, as in showing a different route.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's a hard thing to define, I think, ultimately, I think that maybe that's kind of what you guys are getting at.
That's
It's
what
like,
I'm
if you
getting.
just, but I think some
It's the
people view it-
community.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
And it
There's
drives
so-
me
There's
crazy.
some of them are toxic.
Like
I'm not gonna
straight
say-
up, right? The Bible says, while we were sinners, Christ died for us, right? So it's like, think about that. What makes you think that just because you are where you are doesn't mean that God isn't willing to take you where you are? Like, it is so toxic. I can't believe it. Because it's like, if you really look at all these bands that just transitioned out, like August Burns Red and Fit for a King, it was the community that made them turn. You know, because they wanted to talk about these other bigger things that are part of our faith. Like, straight up, we all struggle with depression. We all struggle with anxiety and insecurities. Like, that's a part of being human. And you want to pretend that just because you're Christian, you don't struggle with that. Like, that's baloney. And I'm sick of it, dude. I'm so tired of it. Or like, what really makes me upset is you got this community that says, oh, you need a Christian band, because if you're not a Christian band, I'm not going to support them. What the crap is that? Like, either you're going to support the musician and the music and what they're doing, like you get the message, or you don't. Has nothing to do with whether they claim to be a Christian band, because it's like, you could be Christians and be in a band like Fit for a King and not preach the gospel. Really what the issue is are you playing heavy worship or not? That's it. That's it. So if you're just gonna be making awesome music, great. Why can't we support that? Like, it doesn't have to blatantly be worship music. I'm tired of it. I'm not joking when I said that. I'm fed up with this crap. I don't have any more patience and tolerance for it, because it's like, we're supposed to be accepting each other and edifying the body of Christ and building each other up, not tearing each other down over what, whether they identify as being a Christian band. Like, it's dumb.
Well, I can't
It's
remember the
so
exact verse, but do not be like those that preach in the streets.
Yeah.
So I mean, like, and then there's a where do not reach, but then you go pray in your closet because you know it's something between you and God. So yes, I mean, like, you don't have to be there, you know, like, I'm saying the word because I want people to know that I am a Christian. No, you can have it to yourself and still follow that way. You don't have to be out there braiding, and then especially like how they're like, you know, Christ heals all. Yes, he does, but especially like, you know, mental health and everything. You can't just go, you know, oh, you know, I'm just gonna pray and it'll be good. You need help as well.
Yeah.
So if you turn back away from that, I mean, you're not getting the full experience of what you need.
I mean, like 3 times, right? After Peter denied Christ 3 times, right? Jesus is cooking a fish on the beach because that's what he does, feed people. And he asked Peter 3 times, do you love me? And all 3 times Peter said yes, right? And Jesus told him, then feed my sheep. So why is it that we're not willing to feed sheep that are lost, that are a little astray, or that are feeling a little sad? Like, why? It's silly. It's silly, and I'm sick of it. Like, bro.
Well, also, it's kind of like one of those things where, you know, people say that they're Christian, right? But then it's like, do they really have the fruits of the spirit, as in the fact that you will be kind, even if that person is not kind, like, you will still be kind to them, like they are still a human being. So I really applaud like you for just straight up saying like, I got a mustard seed right now, and I have this whole community, my brothers like coming alongside me and like loving on me, like that that is some heavy stuff, you know what I mean? And it's like the fact that you're just like being so transparent about it. And I know other people are gonna relate to this because even if we, even when we say, yes, I am Christian, but I struggle with A, B, and C, it's like, there are some days like for me where I'm like, you know what? What if God's not real? What if this is all just like, all in my head and I'm just crazy?
Yeah.
But then it's like, then the fact of like, you know what? But I have that experience where I was literally like he saved me from my suicide attempt. You know what I mean? Like, it was just like, it's undeniably like I had that moment with the Lord. That's like, that's what I always go back to. And it's like, not everybody has that salvation moment where it's like clear as day, like the Lord. I mean, when you talk about like the Lord saved you when you were on your kitchen floor,
Yeah.
and it's like, you just knew, you know what I mean? And like, not everybody has that
Yeah.
come to Jesus moment. And sometimes, some people may never will. And then that's when we go back to the, it's not by seeing and like all this other stuff. But at the end of the day, it's like you said, it doesn't matter if like, you have to be like so odd for God, because then it's like some people that eventually turns into like a Pharisee type of situation. And then it becomes more of like a religion, and like that's not what we're about. Like, that's not what it should be about, like following every single law when Jesus came to fulfill the law. So it's just kind of one of those things where, you can listen to this podcast and be like, I like this, I don't really like this, like just, whatever. But everybody, I'm just gonna say it, like, you are a straight up liar if you profess to be a Christian and you have not once doubted. Like, that is just, that is blasphemy, yeah. Like, I don't know anyone.
So I get
Yeah.
delivered from epilepsy, like straight up, no more seizures, no more medication, and I still wrestled for God
Mhm.
for 3 months. Just like, am I willing to die for this? Do I really believe what the Bible says? Am I really gonna give up my life for this?
Mhm.
Even though, like, who can say God's not real when that happened to me? I still wrestled for 3 months, and I don't think enough people talk about like sanctification. It's a lifelong process. And it's okay to wrestle, and it's okay to have those doubts, and it's okay to have those fears or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, it's all right, because like in the Bible, Jesus was carrying his cross, and somebody from the crowd had to come help him carry that burden.
Yep.
And that's what community is. That's what fellowship is. Whatever your burden is that you're trying to carry, come alongside, we got you.
Yeah.
And I'm I'm really, really like really fed up with this, because like,
Like the AA community, I think does a better job of that. I mean, I'm not sober myself, but I've had a lot of experiences, like going to AA groups, going into Narcotics Anonymous, going all those things. And what I appreciate, and I wish the church was more like this, is they do a way better job at that. Because they're not pissed off that you drank.
Yeah.
They're not like, oh, David, you came today, but you drank yesterday, don't come back.
See, and
Yeah,
that's-
But
Wow,
but the church is a little like that, no.
In some things.
They're more like, hey, it's okay, today's your day one,
because
It's all good, dude.
everybody has this idea, if you're Christian, you're perfect. And it's like, no, Jesus died for sinners.
We are the least perfect people.
It's not about what you can do, what I can do, or what y'all can do. It's about what he did. And for some reason, these churches don't get that. But that's why we're doing the Celebrate Recovery show, because Celebrate Recovery is a 12-step program that's Christ-centered. So no matter what your struggle is, that's a place. It's a safe place where everybody can go and heal and get fellowship. Like, it's radically changed my life. I wouldn't. Yeah.
That's, I'm sure, I don't know how you, but what I appreciated the first time I went is how real people were.
Yeah.
They were not unwilling to say whatever they did. They're like, oh, I drank all the time, and so I would have sex with people I shouldn't have, and I did this and that. They just talk about it. And that never happens, at least in my experience, for the most part in the church. And that radical honesty and candor is what changes people, because then they feel like they're not alone. And music and art is supposed to be an expression of that too. Because I think the songs are chemicals, right? Or whatever, you connect with it because you felt it.
Yeah.
So when we sing all these praise and worship songs, and man, this is probably this.
Say it.
But a lot of it's kind of like, well, we're not happy all the time.
Yeah.
And there's not enough lament in the church. There's not enough, like, I think the Psalms express doubt, Lamentations, Job.
Yeah.
My favorite book in the Bible, because I'm emo, is Ecclesiastes.
Love it.
And I think all those things are expressing this doubt and this pain and
Yeah.
hurt that we've all felt. And I'm not saying we should always wallow in that, you know, Xanax state, if you will.
Mhm.
But we should absolutely like feel those things and sing about those things just as much as we sing about how much we love Jesus.
Yeah,
Because I think we are human beings following Jesus. We all have those same experiences, and not for that to be reflected in our art or our worship is really sad, because I think that Judaism is way better at that, to be honest.
That's true.
Way better at expressing like that.
Mhm.
I mean, even the concept of having a wake after somebody dies. Because usually we just get together with some deviled eggs. I'm a white person, right? So we get together with deviled eggs. And like,
If you didn't.
all right, you know, you can't tell me quiet, you know. We get together with some deviled eggs, you know, maybe because we're in South Texas, you throw some tamales and stuff in there, but we just, you know, you go to the funeral, you know, sorry for your loss, man, sorry.
I can
And
go.
then and that's it. And you know what? You kind of know it's all vapid, fake rap, and that's how a lot of times I feel about the music that people create in the Christian sphere. It's very fake. And when you listen to it, you're like, this doesn't reflect anything about the reality of our
Well,
experience.
I think that's kind of how. So I'm a lifelong church goer, pretty much the same church since I was baptized in when I was a baby. My parents got married there. My grandparents went there. My grandma has a piece of art that's up on the wall that's been there forever. That's where we did TKC, and I'm one of those people who. And it's a weird, like, it's almost a guilt feeling whenever you didn't have something so difficult that happened to you that turned you
Mhm.
or made you start believing.
Yeah.
I was born into it, I guess is the way to put it.
Mhm.
And so I do sometimes have that, like, I never struggled to get to that point. So is my faith as strong or as real as somebody else's who's been through that and had to deal with that?
The answer is no.
And
Oh,
I've thought about that a lot. Anytime anybody mentions, it used to be worse, but anytime anyone talks about stuff like that, I would feel like I don't know what that's really like. Now, there was a time when, I mean, I had a porn addiction, you know, and that's always rough.
Mhm.
that is rough.
I think, I don't know. I think because I was already Christian and I was going through that and I already had, you know, a support system, it wasn't as dire or hard for me as some of these other things have been.
Mhm.
I love
That's
that.
cool. I know.
No, my sense of understanding is like, I don't have a testimony like you, so, and I don't even know if my faith's real. I'm like, first off, the Lord hears your prayers, and if he's answering your prayers, that means, you know, you're good, dude. For us, you're good. But that guilt is real, and it makes me really sad that people feel that way because it's not a competition.
And it's not as bad as clearly.
It's
Like I used to have such weird, strong stances on certain things. I already knows that I have now because I've lived life.
You sat with the Baptists around the mountain fire and you're like, all they confess is these little petty sins. Like I said, damn. Oh my God.
And
I kissed a boy.
I think I've grown away from being so harsh in the way that I felt that stuff. He's probably the one that would know the most about my struggle with being that. I guess that would be too judgy. Judgy is what that was.
We need grace. We do need.
And judgment.
So and the conversations that are happening in those Facebook groups. I joined about 3 or 4 of those types of Christian Facebook groups for metal around the same time because we were starting TKC back up and I was going to try to get that as a, hey, we're here kind of thing. But I didn't last 2 months before I unfollowed all of those because it was just constant. And I'm part of one still, but I'm about to turn it off because they were good when I first started, but now it's like nothing but talking about the kind of thing. And it's like,
That and Striper.
yes, which is so funny.
Yeah.
Well, because I listened to a guy named Pastor Bob who does like a little 5 to 8 minute coffee break is what he calls it on YouTube. And he was the first one in the 80s to start a Christian metal worship service.
You see the video?
No.
Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime.
Oh. And And Stripe, I guess the lead guy from Striper was their worship leader.
What?
And another one of the really old, big Christian metal bands was also from their church. So they like, in the eighties, started this whole thing. So hearing how all that's been for them compared to what we went through when we started seeing all the struggle that we had to deal with. It's very interesting, which I'm starting to get off topic, so.
No, you're fine.
No, this is all good stuff, and I appreciate you guys coming out here and taking the time to re-record this podcast and just like spending this time with us. And honestly, this interview is like way better.
I'm telling
Than
you,
the last one.
the second one's have been so much better than
Mhm.
the first one, but probably they got deleted early on.
So, we're at the last part of the segment. If you guys want to link your social media pages, like anything that's coming up with shows, anything you want, for everybody to know.
I don't think we have any shows after this one lined up.
Yeah, we don't.
We're special.
Yeah.
This is, we've been writing, working on the new stuff, kind of working on a whole new set list and stuff like that, so. I'd probably estimate when they're playing again, around August, it's kind of, August, September, sometime in that time frame. We're gonna try to spend the teacher time when these guys are off, try to load down.
Teacher too, yeah.
Load down
Love it.
on the new stuff, so.
I think social media wise, we're on Facebook and Instagram at Mariam,
Just
yeah,
Mariam.
I think at Mariam CC or at Mariam, one of the two. There's a Mariam artist from like Italy, so don't get.
Don't worry.
And we'll
It's not
put
metal.
the links below.
Yeah, on most like Spotify and stuff, you have to put Mariam All Is Grace to actually pull up our music because that other Mariam has.
It's very, very, very popular. So what we didn't do is, like some bands, we didn't think through our name when we started.
Oh, man, we'll get into our name forever to begin. But
Now,
Just
what
like-
about merch or anything like that?
Merch.
Like, do you guys sell, do y'all have like a store? Can anybody donate to your
we don't
anything?
we don't have anything like that online. I've been thinking about doing that just because we do have people who listen to our music that don't live around us and wouldn't be able to call me and be like, hey, can you bring me a shirt? So I've been thinking a little about doing that.
Got a merch design out.
Oh yeah, we have a new shirt today.
Yeah.
If you go on Facebook, you'll see it.
We crowd killing,
Yep, technically it's banned.
Bandit
which is-
crowd killing.
bandit crowd killing.
If you watched it, you know.
Well, you can't see.
Stop watching. My kid
It
stopped
teaches
watching
life
it.
lessons.
Yeah, my kid stops watching it and I'm still watching it.
Yeah,
So-
he'll go to take a nap and I'll still watch like 3 episodes after he's taken a nap. So, yes, it's our M logo, which is that on the front and on the back. It's like anytime there's a new episode, it says on today's episode, and then they'll say the title,
Mhm.
and ours has bandit like crowd killing and underneath says on today's episode, crowd killing. With
That's
the
so
blue
cool.
background and everything like a new episode.
Very Christian now.
I love it. Well, thank you guys so much for being here with us
Thank
this
you,
afternoon. I
guys.
really appreciate it. Chill, do you have anything else that you want to say before we end the podcast?
I'm excited. Y'all are amazing. I'm praying for y'all a lot.
Yes, praying for you. Thank you guys so much for coming out, and until we meet again, this is Celeste signing out with Heavy Worship Nation. Bye, guys.